They're after me. Who? Who? The woke mob, of course. In this dystopian world of cancel culture, I did one thing wrong and every woke liberal in town is after me. Well, not necessarily after me, but I got 2 whole DMs asking me to take accountability for my actions, and it's basically the same thing. What did I do? Well, obviously nothing bad enough to warrant this kind of explosive reaction. I just, killed somebody, but that doesn't matter. I don't know why people can't just, separate the art from the artist now. Especially not all these fat... Separating the art from the artist is an interesting concept for me. I, like many people my age, had their first impactful experience with this concept when J.K. Rowling started being transphobic out of the blue. I still feel conflicted about how to respond to that situation, especially since incidents like that one are quite common. I blame this on every famous person being insane, but each individual famous person has their own reasons. Some artists, however, are not just controversial for statements that they make, but things that they do. P. Diddy is perhaps the most famous example of cretins like this in recent history, as well as disgusting pieces of human filth like R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, and Dan Schneider. So, needless to say, there are hundreds of examples of artists who are nuts, and, in some cases, just bad people. This we know, but what happens when those same people make some impeccable art? Well, that's what we get into today. Before that, though, allow me to tell you a story. Welcome back to my fairy paradise, where the dress code is an ugly pink mask with 4 eyes and a morph suit, and you must own at least one tiny $75 candle to enter. When I first started this channel, all I wanted to do was talk about interesting and relevant topics. Pretty simple task, and my research was mostly just stuff that made me angry online or inspired me. One of those things happened to be Melanie Martinez. I didn't really like her music, as I discovered on the podcast I used to have when I did a review of Melanie's entire discography. I'm sorry, I hated that song. I listened to it, and when it got to what was supposed to be the build up to the chorus breakdown or whatever, the bubbles, I couldn't take it seriously because it didn't sound good. It sounded like she found a sound of bubbles and she was like, okay, cool, now let's just put this in the BandLab sampler and pitch it up and down. No, I didn't like it. In this script, at the very end, the video took a more serious turn from hologram meet and greets and expensive candles I've been talking about, and discussed the allegations of Melanie sexually assaulting one Timothy Heller. In this video, I basically just said I believe victims, and I think Melanie shouldn't be allowed to hide behind her fame and her influence. However, Melanie fans hated my video. they hated it. This led to me making a follow-up discussing much of the fake evidence, or in most cases non-existent evidence, of Timothy lying for clout. I then deleted both videos just to get rid of Melanie's name from my reputation. I just didn't want to be known for discussing her anymore. It wasn't fun. A while later, though, Timothy Heller made a TikTok explaining more about these allegations. I made a video which garnered about 1.6 thousand views, a lot for me at the time, and still now, as well as a ton of hate. I made another follow-up shortly after, that one focusing on a piece of evidence one of my commenters sent me, which I figured out was fake only recently when doing research for this video. I was expecting the response would be, wow, it sucks that Melanie could have done that stuff. We should believe the victim, especially since there's no evidence that Melanie didn't do it, and her statements are pretty sketchy. Turns out the response was more like, kill yourself. So, I privated my entire YouTube channel until recently. That was a very long story, just to get to the questions I was left with after getting so many hate comments. There were a lot. Mostly, why is everybody so mean? Wah, I'm a little piss baby. Wait, who wrote this? The main question I actually ended up with was, why are people so quick to make artists seem perfect or separate them from their art entirely? Those seem like the 2 main approaches people would have for defending Melanie, or for defending Ye, or for defending J.K. Rowling, or any other artist. The first approach seemed easy to analyze. Much like K-pop record labels, people want idols. I should quit YouTube. Mainly for artists with very impactful art, people attach themselves and develop parasocial relationships with these artists and what they create. This artist becomes your entire personality, or a huge part of it, and it can feel weird when people are telling you that somebody you even subconsciously believe was a truly good person at heart is far from that. that can lead to you defending this person with your life. Most of the time, it's hard to accept that you don't actually know the person behind the art. You know a character. You know a public image and nothing else, and even musicians with the most deeply personal, intimate lyrics can never be fully known without being one of their very, very close friends or family members. So that defense was pretty easily attached to parasocial relationships. But the second defense was weird for me. Separating the art from the artist was a weird concept because it's sort of impossible to do. The art that any artist makes is fully unique to that person, and them alone. Their artistic choices are informed, consciously or subconsciously, by their own life experience. If you put any other musician in Melanie's shoes, they wouldn't make the same thing she did. If you give any author a pen, they couldn't write Harry Potter. Any creative work that you partake in literally cannot be made the same way you make it. You can't just separate art from the artist because the art just couldn't be there without them and their experience. The reason why people jump to detaching the two purely comes from just how easy it is. It's easy for somebody to say, I'm going to turn on this album I like, and not acknowledge how I'm supporting and listening to a horrible person. It's also easy for the same way much other apathy is. You can brush away your impact because so many other people still listen to Ye. What difference will I make if I stream his music? The issue isn't just you doing it, though, and you have to realize that by ignoring how possibly questionable listening to one of these musicians is, you're allowing an environment where it becomes easier and easier for everybody to do that. I'm not going to stab you for listening to a problematic musician or reading books by problematic authors. You're free to make your own decisions. At the same time, trying to lie to yourself by separating the art from the artist just won't work. And if you're going to be supporting these artists, consider if being a cog in an apathy machine that works to keep messed up artists like them on top is worth it for some music. This whole discussion of cancel culture and whether or not you can still listen to controversial musicians is annoying, frankly, because I find that it gives people who don't enjoy accountability something to blame and point at instead of owning up. It's What was that? It's frustrating to see people get away with some heinous stuff just by saying that people on the internet are trying to cancel them. Believe it or not, woke used to be used with a positive connotation, and in famous Childish Gambino songs. But now it's just used when there are people of color in Disney movies. Of course, I don't think every person who said a homophobic slur 15 years ago should be publicly executed, and I hope this video doesn't end up sounding like that. I just believe that art does not excuse actions, and the person behind a creation has a permanent tie with what they made. If I start publicly saying I'm a nut in 30 years, please stop listening to my music. Please. 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 So where does that leave the musicians? Let's just jump back to my Melanie Martinez example. After Timothy made her TikTok, people defended Melanie, attacked Melanie, or didn't care. A few weeks later, this topic was out of the zeitgeist. It was hard to find many people still discussing these very serious allegations online. Also, Melanie never made a response. Well, when Timothy first brought up the alleged assault, Melanie did make a response, but it was mostly, she said yes, I swear, guys. Yet somehow, this time, she didn't say anything. And it worked perfectly. You see, if you're a point of discussion for negative reasons on the internet, the smartest possible thing to do, while avoiding ethics, is to not say anything. If you say anything, that allows people to continue discussing the controversy, and it makes it harder for others to forget anything happened in the first place. Even if you continue to do weird stuff, for instance, making a coloring book or something that portrays children in a creepy light, random example, you can easily avoid having to discuss your actions, take accountability, or end up exposing it if you did do something messed up. You can just sit in silence and wait for it to all blow over, so you can continue to profit off of streams, overpriced candles, and strange coloring books. It was insane to me that Melanie, or artists like her, were able to walk away with only a few scratches on their reputation, 99% of their fans intact. As a musician or anybody with a controversy, many people choose to take advantage of the fact that the internet at large has the attention span of a kindergartner on a sugar high. The fact that it works is what scares me. I was going to just put a conclusion here, but then while hunched over my keyboard with the posture of a banana, I got a text from my friend. It was several screenshots of the post Tom York made after this video went viral.
Okay, you do. See you later.
I was really expecting a man like Tom York to have some common sense about this issue, but sadly it was hard to find. In the first page, he resorted to how a genocide made his mental health bad, and later referred to people asking him to say something on this issue as a social media witch trial, which was greatly disappointing to me. I feel like the whole thing was just a Disney Channel response of, why can't we just set aside our differences and come together? Where there clearly needs to be more action than that. For a man like Tom, for a band like Radiohead, it just didn't add up. It just felt like a simple PR statement. And while I did agree with parts of it, and I was glad that he condemned people like Benjamin Netanyahu, it just felt like another artist under fire for controversy going to the same old bag of tricks. I don't think artists need to be experts in every political issue, and that's never had to be the case. However, when we're talking about a massive humanitarian crisis resulting in children starving or being bombed, I think it's important for artists to take a stand, or we risk letting the same apathy that gives artists like Ye a platform lead to the general population of the US and beyond becoming desensitized to war crimes. Free Palestine. You can donate to some related charities in my description. So, what does this mean for artists? It's hard to say. Certainly don't believe that cancel culture has made it so you can't say anything anymore. That just isn't true. Most artists you can think of who have a controversy are still out there to support and listen to. Even artists like Diddy still have merch websites. I think the only thing that the internet has done to cancel culture is give people more awareness of what their favorite artists are up to. These artists are allowed to give their uncensored opinion to the masses, and we bear witness if they make a massive mistake. If these artists couldn't share on the internet, they'd probably still hold the same ideologies that they do while sharing on the internet. Just quieter. While I do believe that most of these celebrities have just been indoctrinated into scummy online echo chambers, I don't believe that sharing has really changed their opinions. It's expressed them. On one hand, I think internet accountability is important, and I think artists should be aware of how their words and actions affect their large audiences. On the other hand, some people take it way too far, and then artists get doxxed or get death threats, and I don't believe that's helping at all if the artist just said something messed up. Unless you do something truly horrible, you should have room to grow from your mistakes, and threatening the death of someone's family doesn't really give them any room to grow. I guess that's all I really have to say about this hot button topic of separating the art from the artist and cancel culture. Thanks for watching. I hope this video/rant was at least a little bit interesting. Have a good life. Bye.